And it's Colombia itself now is producing all the coca plantations, the cultivation of the coca leaf. So they're basically doing everything themselves up there now. But Peru and Bolivia were big exporters of coca paste.
Well, I see.
And that's what the difference is. And bottom line is just like in any major product, the guy who actually grows it gets a very, very small percent of whatever the value of the cocaine paste or cocaine kilos of cocaine, the hydrochloride.
Funny how the rules of business apply no matter what you're doing.
Exactly.
Now there's spraying down there, as you know,
right.
Herbicides, pesticides, and things that are just really awful for the environment. Are they actually going to? Does somebody actually think they're going to be able to spray enough of the countryside to damage the output of coca paste?
Well, bottom line is I don't think they're spraying the coca fields.
What are they spraying?
They're spraying the corn and everything else that goes around that area because they're going to have to force the guerrillas to come out of the area. And if you don't have food, then you got to come out. Oh. And bottom line is, it's got nothing to do with the war down there, with the Civil War. It has nothing to do with that because, we had it in El Salvador, we had it in Guatemala, and and you got to understand we have one of the best intelligence networks in the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, we could have stopped that war in El Salvador maybe the first 2 years, and it took them 10 years to do that. Why? Because war makes money.
Sure.
And, they built and so forth. Every 10 years, we got to have a war. Every 10 years. And it's just, you can see it.
We're overdue for a biggie.
Exactly. We did the Gulf War 10 years ago, and now we're doing this so-called war on drugs.
Now, it's been 56 years since World War II, so we will see what happens. When you're up in those airplanes down there, flying around, and we've got men and women down there now, we're losing Americans, too, aren't we?
Absolutely. We lost a surveillance plane down there where some military, both males and females, were killed.
That wasn't too long ago. I remember
Not too long ago.
Were they being taken down by shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles?
No, but I tell you what, this is going to be a completely different war because, it's all going to be computerized. Everything is, they got cell phones, they got laptops, they got access to cloning the cell phones, so they know when the government is coming. Plus, they have those surface-to-air missiles, and a lot of those choppers are going to be shot down.
That's what I thought.
A lot of casualties, and that's why DynCorp and all the other ones are going to be in trouble, and that's why they're hiring those mercenaries to go out there and do the dirty work. And a lot of them are drug addicts and alcoholics. They're all guys that have nothing else to do but
go down and kill people.
Cold War. Yeah, make money.
Yeah, make money and kill people.
Exactly. All you got to do is read that Soldier of Fortune magazine, and you get a lot of intelligence out of that. It's amazing how they...
they read the classified ads in that thing. If you
oh, my God, yes.
True.
Absolutely.
Mentioning it for a couple of years, the increased activity in Colombia, another war perhaps, a mini or micro Vietnam. Sully Castillo is my guest, former DEA agent, retired now. Some people call him a whistleblower. I call him a hero. What about this Colombia situation, Sully, for Americans who still don't understand what's going on down there? I don't know anybody who really can rattle off more than a sentence or two about it. People don't understand what the fight is down there, why we're involved, what's going on. They just don't get it. Can you give us a little outline, please, to help people simply understand what's happening in Colombia?
Well, what's happening in Colombia is, first of all, it's a civil war between themselves. Now, the United States government is saying that the far left, the FARC organization, is involved in drug trafficking.
That's called FARC.
Right. When in fact we've known that the government of Colombia has been heavily involved with the cartels for many years.
Of course. We got to think that the tentacles of the cartels go to the top of the Colombian government. They've been there. It's money, it's threats, it's everything else. Blackmail, you name it.
Exactly. So basically what they want to do now is they want to control the whole drug trade. And to do that, they're going to have to take the everybody who is involved in drugs. It's called the process of elimination. They go with the organization and get involved with drugs. And like I stated before, when the dust is settled, we're still going to have more drugs and more banks laundering money than when we started the war.
So we're going in to support the government against the FARC, F-A-R-C.
Right.
We're doing our PR job and painting them out to be the cocaine evil warlords on the planet, when in point of fact, of course, the Colombian government proper in many ways is every bit as guilty.
Exactly.
Same old story.
Bottom line, yeah. The same thing.
How many Americans are down there now? Do we know approximately?
We got a lot of
thousands down there now?
Yeah, we got thousands of them. We got a lot of mercenaries working down there that worked down there before, and they're all back working for as contract labor or contract assets, as they say, for the Central Intelligence Agency.
I'd like to, if I can, just for a minute, go back to your friends, your late friends Kiki and Frankie, and honor them a little bit. Tell our listeners what happened to them, will you please? It's a horrible story, but these men were again doing what you did when you were in the service to our country, trying to do the right thing.
Right, exactly. And what happened to Kiki Camarena was the fact that he was out there trying to do the best he could, and in reality, he was stepping on a lot of people's toes, and we were talking about the big cartels. Mm-hmm. And when Kiki got grabbed, bottom line is that the people that tortured him and recorded his torture and buried him alive were all assets for the Central Intelligence Agency. They were working for the CIA.
Oh, man.
And that's why the CIA came up with the tapes on the torture. And they said, and then the U.S. Customs closed the border. Mm-hmm. And they said, you got to cuff up Kiki. We got to have him. Where is he? Mm-hmm. And I remember in 1991 when I was in San Diego, California, I heard the tapes. And Kiki kept pleading for, please don't kill me. I have a family and so forth. And you could hear the kettle prawn going off
right.
as he was trying to beg for his life. And that's what happened to Kiki. Kiki was just trying to do his job, and it was a casualty of war, as they say.
He was sacrificed.
He was sacrificed, and the cartel found out that there's a big pain in the butt if you take down an agent. But, nowadays, because of the corruption within the U.S. government, it's no big deal anymore. And
the agents don't have the security they used to have.
Exactly, they don't. They don't have it anymore because it's so easy to kill people down there that, who's going to investigate it, number one? And secondly, there are not going to be any witnesses around.
Of course. Who are you going to bring to trial?
Exactly.
Give me a break. So the agents don't have the security anymore. It used to be that, boy, if you it's like killing a cop. You don't do that. You're going to have a problem.
Exactly.
But they don't have that anymore going for them. So obviously many of the agents, Sally, if I'm not incorrect, are not going to push as hard as they might have in the past.
Absolutely not, because it's not worth it. A lot of them are down there because they choose to be number one because they put in for it. Number two is that they have a life, they have a family, they have careers, and they have a mortgage to pay, so they're not going to go out there and put their lives on the line.
Kiki was an example that was made also, and they'll never forget that. Now, what about Frankie?
Well, Frankie was killed in an airplane accident with a whole bunch of other DEA agents.
Uh-huh.
And what happened was they tried to figure out, they hit the side of a mountain way up there and killed about 5-6 DEA agents at one time. Mm-hmm. And but I knew Frankie personally very much because Frankie was a very good friend of mine that I worked with in New York City, and I worked with him in San Diego, California, and we were like roommates. We used to hang out together, go out together, and two Latino brothers going out there and just having a good time.
Sure. Crack in L.A. That was a big story. San Jose Mercury News. Gary Webb. It was Gary, wasn't it? Broke the story.
That's correct. Dark Line story.
And fabulous journalism. Journalism at its best. Of course, he was eventually repudiated by his own management and put out to pasture, as it were. Tell me about crack in L.A. and the CIA's role in that from your perspective, Sally.
Well, my perspective was at that time period, and you got to remember that was the Contra War. That's when the U.S. government, the Central Intelligence Agency, let those third world countries sleep with the cartel in the name of democracy. In other words, like, for example, Guatemala and Salvador, it was so-called a democracy. And the incentive for them was to go ahead and make money in the drug trade.
Yeah.
And that's why thousands and thousands of kilos of cocaine flooded the streets of the U.S. because there was so much drugs. The cocaine was just huge. And what happened was Ricky Ross was able to corner the market and make it into crack cocaine. And he did. He was what was known as the Walmart of crack. And he teamed up with the gangs in L.A. and all over the country, the Bloods and the Grips and everybody else.
Talking about a distribution network.
And the cocaine epidemic broke, and it was just it mushroomed. It just went ballistic on everybody and so forth. So that's the story on that, and that's why the U.S. government just let all this stuff come in.